This video is all about page 32 out of your math book. The example says, Andrea is a street artist in New Orleans. She draws caricatures, which are cartoon-like portraits of tourists. People have their portrait drawn and then come back later to pick it up from her. The graph below shows the relationship between the number of portraits she draws and the amount of time and hours she needs to draw the portraits. So I'm looking at this graph right here, and I see like we have this as the x-axis, and then this right here is the y-axis. And as I'm examining the graph, I'm noticing that it's proportional. And what makes this graph proportional, is that it's linear and it passes through the origin. So therefore it's proportional. It shows a proportional relationship between the number of portraits drawn and the time she spends drawing those portraits. So letter A says write several ordered pairs from the graph and explain what each ordered pair means in the context of the graph. So I'm going to find just a couple of ordered pairs here, and I'm going to make sure they're at perfect intersections with the grid line of the graph, okay? So I know that there's a point here, the whole entire line is points, but I don't know the exact ordered pair for this, like, for example, that right there. I don't know it, okay? But I do know the exact ordered pair for this one right here, and that's going to be 2, 3, parentheses. And then where's another one at a perfect intersection with the grid lines? Oh, there's one. 4, 6. And let's see here. I think we got, like this one right here also. 6, 9. Okay, so those I think we'll call that good, and we have to write them down. And 4, 6, and 6, 9. Okay, but we're not quite done. We need to explain what the heck these mean in the context of the problem, okay? So if you recall, this is x, this is y, this is x value, this is the y value, x value, and the y value. And it might help you if you stuck them in a table. So we have x and y, and then x represents time spent drawing them, so I'm just going to put time. And then y represents, is it time in what, hours? Oh yeah, in hours. Okay, time in hours. And then y represents the number of portraits drawn. All right, so we have 2, 3, 4, 6, 6, 9. So this might help you when you are just interpreting what these mean. So the x value is 2. 2 represents the time in hours. So 2 hours are needed to draw 3 portraits. Okay, this one right here, 4, 6, that means 4 hours are needed to draw 6 portraits. 6, 9, that means 6 hours are needed to draw 9 portraits. Okay. Write several equations that would relate the number of portraits drawn to the time spent drawing the portraits. So when we're writing an equation to represent this proportional graph or this proportional table, you would go y equals, leave a spot for your unit rate, times x, okay? And then x represents, well, you can look from the graph or you can look from the table because it's labeled exactly consistently. So that x represents time spent drawing portraits, so I'm just going to put time in hours. And then that y, which is a dependent variable, it's represented right here and also right here, just number of portraits drawn. Okay. And we got to find that unit rate. So there's a couple of ways you can find the unit rate. Let's try and see if we can find it from the graph. So when x is 1, the corresponding y value is the unit rate. And unfortunately, it's not at a perfect intersection on the grid line of the graph, so I don't want to make a guess, okay? So I can always turn to the table, and I can go y divided by x to find the unit rate. So y divided by x. So 3 divided by 2, or 4 divided by 6, or 6 divided by 9. The reason I can use any one of those is because I already know that this graph is proportional, so therefore I know this table is proportional, so you can pick any one of the values. So let's just go ahead and go 9 divided by 6, y divided by x. 9 divided by 6 is 1.5, okay? So 1.5 is our unit rate. And what that means is 1.5 portraits are drawn per hour. Okay, and if that was kind of a little bit confusing for you, you can always also find unit rate like this. Y divided by X, then pick one, 3 divided by 2, and label it right away. So portrait, 3 portraits, it took 2 hours, and then set up, your proportion. So divide by 2, 3 divided by 2 is 1.5 portraits. So see, we stuck that and we put it right there in the equation, okay? But it says write several equations that would relate the number of portraits drawn to the time spent drawing the portrait. So I can write it like that. I can also write it like this. 1 5/10 x equals y. Or if you know what 1 5/10 is as a fraction, that would be awesome too. Y equals 1 5/10 is actually 3/2. Okay? Like that. Because if you look over here, y over x is 3/2. Right here, y over x is 6/4, which simplifies to 3/2. Right here, not y over x is 9/6, which simplifies all the way down to 3/2. So instead of saying 1.5, you could say 3/2. 1 5/10 is the same as 3/2. Those are both interchangeable. Okay. Letter C. Determine the constant of proportionality. That means unit rate. And explain what it means in this situation. Well, we've done that a bajillion times throughout this whole entire problem. So let's just go ahead and just write it out so it's completely obvious for the person that wrote this math book. Unit rate is y divided by x. And pick which value haven't we picked? Let's go ahead and go, let's use this one, 6 and the 9. So we gotta go y divided by x. So 9 portraits took 6 hours. So let's simplify that down to get the unit rate. So divide by 6, divide by 6. 9 divided by 6 is 1.5 portraits per hour. Okay? So Andrea can draw 1.5 or 1 5/10 portraits in 1 hour.